we start off with a biggie because just moments before we sat down to do this show, we had reports that Rob Edwards is set to leave Luton Town by mutual consent. Now, as we sit here currently, it is just reports, and in typical podcasting fashion, it will probably be confirmed as soon as we finish recording here. But the bottom line is, Justin Peach, it wouldn't be a surprise if this news were to become official at any point in the next few days.
Yeah, it's essentially been a case of I've been waiting for this news to drop for probably the past 4 or 5 weeks. You know, it's got to a point where things feel pretty untenable.
Maybe even longer than that, isn't it?
Maybe longer than that. Yeah, I mean, if I was a very harsh manager or CEO or sporting director, I'd have made this decision myself personally, probably back in October time.
You think about it, mid-November, we've pretty much thought he was gone because he had that now sort of infamous interview after they got pumped by Middlesbrough. And he was basically talking like a man who was beaten, a man who had kind of just accepted that he was out of a job. And 2 months later, he's still hanging around. So that's why it's surprising. That's why we're sat here now and we're only just talking about this, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, look, I know it can seem that we've been clamouring for him to lose his job, but Luton's results have been terrible. You know, that's the top line. Luton's results have been so poor this season, but performances have been nigh on just as bad. Even the wins have been pretty poor performance-wise. You know, you go back to that Derby win at home where they were very fortunate to score 2 late goals to turn the game in their favour and take the 3 points. You know, that's the baseline. If performances are good and you're not getting results, you can put it down to little things, marginal things, you know, players having off days, not taking your chances, you know, Morgan Foxes scoring with their arses. Do you know what I mean? It's those moments that you can take, but performances haven't been good enough. And you know, that's where clubs grow, that's where teams grow, that's where confidence grows. If you can put the performances in, get the best out of your players, then results will eventually come. But since game 1 against Burnley, that really set the stall. They were shockingly poor against Burnley and they never recovered. And that feeling of losing has never gone away. They obviously went up to the Premier League, were very plucky, were very, you know, fun to watch at times, but they lost a lot of games and it showed.
Yeah, I mean, that's a pretty good summary of this season, Justin. I think we should kind of have like a step back for a sec because we have been talking about it so much for several weeks now that there may be people tuning into this who haven't been listening to us every week and are just trying to find out why this has happened. If you haven't been listening to us every week, what the fuck have you been doing with your lives? But let's look at it from this kind of angle, Justin, because look, Rob Edwards is arguably the greatest manager Luton have had in decades, isn't he? Because he's made them take that next step to the next level, taking them to the top flight, and that's why he's so highly regarded at Luton for getting them to the Premier League, and they battled brilliantly in the Premier League when they were there. And even though they got relegated, I think everyone fully accepted what a courageous job he did when they were there, and having to deal with other factors, of course, like Tommy Lockyer and several other things while they're in the Premier League too. So with Luton coming down, many were hopeful of them managing to bounce back at the first time of asking. Obviously, always going to be difficult with the other teams in this division and their financial powers as well, whereas Luton still sort of playing catch-up in that regard, aren't they? Now, it's obviously not gone well this season, and even as we sit here now, Justin, with plenty of months of evidence of Luton not doing very well, it's still quite tricky to single out the exact reason why it's all gone wrong this season, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It's one of them where I think, you know, something that I've alluded to a couple of times. I think the squad's changed quite significantly. There's been a lot of big personalities leave. I don't think they've got enough leaders. So I think that comes down to recruitment. Did they go out and look for those traits, or were they still trying to be quite smart and savvy with their signings? If you go back to a couple of seasons ago under Nathan Jones, he had the likes of, you know, Henry Lansbury came in. Players like that were recruited because they not only brought in quality, they had a point to prove, but also they had a leadership aspect as well. And I don't think the club's recruitment policy has really stuck by that. I mean, it's got to evolve over the time, but If you're going to sort of throw a dart at the board of Luton Town, I think recruitment is one thing. That feeling of losing a lot and getting very used to that feeling, I think that's another thing that needed to be changed. And I don't know how you change that, by the way, but Chris Wilder's managed to do it. Sheffield United were a terrible football team, but he's managed to turn the tide. He had a big squad reset. Luton Town didn't really have that. That might have been a factor, but as I say, I think recruitment and sort of losing mentality have just stuck around. So there are a couple of points you'd want to throw in there, but you are right. It is very hard to pinpoint the exact thing and the exact point. That all things, the tide changed at Luton.
And I think you talk about Luton and their recruitment. Their recruitment for several years has been absolutely sublime, hasn't it? It's been one of the best in the country. You could make a fair argument that it's the best in the country, pound for pound. So why it's all gone so badly this season has been very, very surprising. I think you talk about leaders there, Justin. There's also big areas where there are glaring weaknesses in the squad. Right wing back is one issue in particular. The number of defenders who they were missing after a few months of the season was also quite problematic. Left wing back, when Alfie Doherty got injured, left them very, very exposed as well. So there were a lot of issues there. You also have to mention that a lot of the players who did so well for them in the Premier League have not matched those same levels this season either. No. Elijah Adebayo, Taif Chong, Carlton Morris, Ted and Mengi. I mean, pretty much everyone at Luton, really. There's not really anyone who can hold up their hand and say they've done well this season, bar one or two. Thomas Kaminski in goal is probably one who stands out. But Rob Edwards this season as well hasn't managed to, as you say, stem the tide in terms of Luton stopping losing games. I think part of that is him not adapting tactically, because Luton have this season not been playing anywhere at all the same as they were in the season they got promoted. They were still playing like a side who were battling relegation, weren't they? A lot of crosses into the box, which has been a common symptom of Rob Edwards' ball this season, and they've not been making the most of the talent that they have available to them. So it's all a load of factors, really, which have contributed to this big mess of a season at Luton Town. And that's why Rob Edwards has now, unfortunately, been the fall guy for it. And you've got to say they've been very patient. They've given him plenty of chance to turn it around, haven't they? As we've been alluding to, he probably should have gone a couple of months ago at the very least. So now that we're sat here, Justin, and it's finally happened where Rob Edwards has parted ways with Luton, I suppose the question is, what happens next? And that's a big question because Luton are in a right old pickle, aren't they?
They are. I mean, what happened the last time they were in a right old pickle? They went and got Nathan Jones back, didn't they? I'm not saying they go out and do that again, but if you want...
Never say never, Justin.
Well, you can't. I know you mentioned that Rob Edwards is one of the greatest managers in Luton Town's history, or the greatest, because you're getting them into the Premier League. But Nathan Jones is for me, is the standout there because he delivered he delivered it all, I think, up until the season that Rob Edwards took them up. But I think they need to get back to the basics of what Luton Town really stood for. And I think Rob Edwards has taken them back a little bit. I think someone needs to come in and develop that siege mentality that was so important under Nathan Jones. Because I think that's how the squad's set up for starters. And someone needs to come in and really drill them. I think things got very nice under Rob Edwards. Things got very, very nice, very lovely. Everyone's sort of hugging each other. Oh, we need grunt work. We need aggressive football again. We need Henry Lansbury kicking Ryan Manning into the air, don't we? That's what I'm alluding to that moment a couple of seasons ago, aren't I? The ridiculous scenario that Henry Lansbury. But that's what we've been missing, I think, this season. That's probably what we were missing last season as well in the Premier League with Luton. So I think if they can come out and find a manager who can deliver that, I think Luton will be a success again. But you pointed it out, they're in a right old pickle. They need someone to come and take it back to the basics and go from there.
Yeah, I think taking it back to the basics is a very simplistic way of looking at it because, while I fully accept everything you're saying there, Justin, I don't really know where Luton Town go next. It has got to be said, their record of appointing managers hasn't been great over the years, despite how well-run a club they've been. Nathan Jones coming back was obviously a bit of a masterstroke, and Rob Edwards coming in was obviously a masterstroke as well. But I mean, Graham Jones is a big, bold example of where things really went wrong many years ago when we first started this podcast. So it's going to be really, really interesting to see who they do get in and what route they go down next. I'm not really sure where they go down next. I think just someone who can grab these players by the scruff of the neck and say, look, things haven't been working out this season. You need to book your ideas up will be a good start. But just getting them back to kind of going off what you were saying, making them a unit again, because that's what Luton Town thrived off for so many years. And they've just not looked like a unit this season. They have looked like a team of individuals. And that's what's really, really cost them. So making them unite again would be a big thing. Whether that actually happens or not is going to be another question. So it'll be really, really fascinating to see who Luton do get in and what path they do go down. I think something's got to be mentioned about Rob Edwards as well, Justin, because surely he won't be out of a job for too long, you imagine? I mean, it's crazy saying this now, but I remember back in the summer when there was talk of Kieran McKenna leaving Ipswich and Ipswich getting in Rob Edwards, which just seems mad now, doesn't it? But that just goes to show how much water has gone under the bridge over the past over the past 7 months or so.
Yeah, it is quite crazy. I mean, he was linked with the Wales job as well. So yeah, it's been a right old 6-7 months for Rob Edwards, but I think he can still leave with his stock relatively high. I think if he'd I know resigning is quite a difficult thing for managers now because, to put it bluntly, they don't get a payout if they resign.
Well, I will point out this is mutual consent, so he has seemingly taken some sort of a cut to what he would get if he were given the right old shot. But I see your point.
Yeah, but I don't think his stock would have fallen too much because I think he's a manager who will take a lot away from this spell this season. He delivered a lot of success because when he came in at Luton, Nathan Jones built them up to be a team that was going to chase for the playoffs, that are very comfortable chasing for the playoffs. Rob Edwards made a couple of tweaks to make them a bona fide promotion contender and delivered promotion against a very good team in Coventry. And then the Premier League, they more than adapted. I think they're missing a lot of quality. So there's 1.5 good seasons there for Rob Edwards to really learn from. And then this season where it really went wrong again, I think he'll take a lot away from that and become a better manager because of it. Because sometimes, no matter how much of a success you are, it's really the poor spells you go through I think that's what makes a manager, better in a sense. You can't be a success after success after success. Sometimes you've got to take the rough with the smooth, and I think Rob Edwards will. He's a great human being. We've seen that displayed countless times with the likes of Tom Lockyer. The empathy, I think, is a very important trait for a manager in the modern game, and he showed plenty of that. And as well as his ability to really get on board with supporters and be on a similar wavelength with them. I think it's a very difficult thing for a manager to do, but Rob Edwards came in at Luton, did that, and achieved a lot through it. So I think there are two non-footballing factors there that really work for him, and then the footballing factors will work in his favour as well.
Yeah, don't disagree with anything you said there, Justin. You learn more from the lows than you do the highs. Exactly. That's just a fact of life, and it's the same with management as well, isn't it? And that's why Rob Edwards will probably take quite a lot from this really tough few months for him. And wherever he ends up next, I imagine there'll be quite a few clubs looking to get him in. He will hopefully be a better manager for it and get back to the levels where his stock was just in the summer just gone. So, yeah, it's sad because, as we were saying, he's done an awful lot for Luton Town. And even though things have gone quite toxic recently and quite sour at Kenilworth Road, he will still be held in a really, really high regard for everything that he's delivered for this football club. And that's why I say, Justin, one of probably the greatest manager Luton have had in recent history. Because of what he's achieved. He's the man who's taken them to that next level and made them a fighting team in the Premier League as well. So even though it's goodbye, it's a sad goodbye as well, Justin, because he's a bona fide Luton Town legend now. Nothing from the past few months changes that. When I went to Luton Town not too long ago to watch them jammily beat Derby, there was still that sense that it's so sad that this is happening. It's really frustrating that it is happening, but it is sad that it has gone so tits up. And that's why this whole saga, I don't think Luton fans will be going, thank God for that. I think they'll be saying it's sad that it's ended this way. And that's the bottom line here. Anything else you want to add, Justin, before we leave that?
I'm going to miss his lovely eyes, Rob Edwards.
Oh, his lovely eyes, his lovely smile. But we haven't seen that lovely smile in a long time, have we, Justin?
No, it's, go away, Rob, if you're listening. Doubt you are, because we've been giving you shit for the last 3 months. But if you are listening, go away, have a holiday, get a tan, come back in the summer, and show us them takes once more.
Oh, get that lovely smile out once again. That's what we all want to see. Right, Justin, we'll have a quick break. After that, we'll talk about other Championship matters, including the latest transfer news and what the hell is going on at Plymouth Argyle. Welcome back to the Second Tier podcast. This is the midweek show where we're doing a news roundup of everything cracking off around the old Champo. And we've got some more manager news for us to discuss, Justin. But before that, 5 in 10. Name 5 Swedish footballers, past or present.
Henrik Larsson, Niklas Alexandersson, Olof Mellberg, Jonas Olsson, Robin Olsson.
Robin Olsson, bloody hell. some names you pulled out there. Who was the second one you said? Niklas Alexandersson?
Yeah, he played for Everton back in the early 2000s. Matthijs Svensson's another one. Oh, I should have said Matthijs Svensson.
You could have said quite a few. You went with a very rogue selection of players there. I mean, Zlatan didn't come to your mind at all?
I don't like him very much.
Okay, fair enough then. Okay, fair enough. Niklas Alexandersson, someone who I completely forgotten about. But fair enough, Justin. You've absolutely nailed your 5 in 10 there. Well done, dear boy. Let's get back onto some of the Championship news then. And we have the latest on Plymouth Argyle's search for a manager following the sacking of Wayne Rooney. And reports suggest it's coming down to 2 candidates. One being former Plymouth manager Steven Schumacher. The other being David Wagner. Plymouth Live say the former Huddersfield and Norwich boss has held talks over the role. Pretty random one, Justin.
Yeah, I'm struggling to really sort of formulate whether or not it'd be a good appointment for Plymouth or for a good role for David Wagner, because he delivered a playoff finish last season for Norwich. So I think he'd be a coup in that sense for Plymouth, but it's whether or not he can work with the set of players at Plymouth, which is why I'm a little bit sort of hesitant with it. That being said, on paper, I do like David Wagner, and I think he's going to bring the traits that Plymouth need. I think he will shore them up, make them difficult to break down. I mean, if you look at when he first took charge of Huddersfield, ignoring the promotion, when he first took charge, I think it was mid-season, he came in, he pretty much got them together, got them unified, got them difficult to break down, and got some really good results. And he's shown that with Huddersfield over time, he can overachieve. So yeah, I think it's a good appointment. It's just whether or not Plymouth have got the quality of players to do that, and whether he'd be willing to drop into League One with them. So how much of a long-term appointment could it be? And obviously Steven Schumacher. That's good, yeah, Steven Schumacher.
Yeah, I mean this with no disrespect intended, but it's quite the fall from grace for David Wagner. 7 years ago, he's been linked with the Borussia Dortmund job. Now he's potentially getting a job at a team who seem pretty destined to be going down to League One this season. So it's interesting when you think of it like that. In fairness to Wagner, he did a great job at Norwich last season, much better than anyone expected him to do. And he was probably quite unfortunate to lose his job in hindsight. The strange thing was Norwich didn't really have an identity last season, despite being as successful as they were, and were perhaps quite reliant on the likes of, Gabriel Sara, Josh Sargent, Johnny Rowe, etc. And he certainly doesn't have that talent at Plymouth Argyle right now. So I'm not sure. He obviously showed with Huddersfield what he can do without the greatest set of resources, but that was 8 years ago now, and a lot has happened in his career since then. So I suppose the question is, what do the Plymouth hierarchy want to do? Do they want to get in a manager with a view to almost accepting that they're going down probably this season, and then get someone who can start preparing them for the best chance of coming straight back up if that does happen? Or do they throw everything at it to try and stay up the season and end up possibly hindering their chances of coming straight back up next season? Because I feel like David Wagner is definitely in the latter category, Justin, whereas Steven Schumacher may actually be in the former category. Do you agree?
Yeah, I do agree. I mean, I said a couple of episodes ago that Plymouth will be probably batting in the market where they're going to go for a young manager or a manager who's trying to recharge their career, go again sort of thing. And David Wagner definitely fills that category, and maybe Stephen Schumacher does as well because of how stinging the Stoke sacking was. But I think both of them offer, I guess, similar things. Stephen Schumacher is a very familiar face, so it's very easy to know why you want to go back to that. It's like going back to your ex. You know what the good feelings are. You know what you're going to get.
Going back to your ex doesn't always work out, does it, Justin?
Exactly.
Not just in football or relationships.
Exactly. So it might not always work out. So maybe David Wagner is the one that I would naturally go to in this scenario. And again, I would expect Stephen Schumacher to get a job above Plymouth. And again, it's no disrespect to Plymouth, just a team with greater resources and a better quality squad, because he does deserve that chance, because we've seen with Stoke what he can do in little spells. And obviously he didn't get the chance to really flourish. But with David Wagner, I think you've got a manager who needs to get his career going again, get back into the positive mindset of a lot of people, because I think a lot of people, including ourselves at times, probably tar him with the brush pre-Norwich. And I think he has shown that with Norwich. And again, I think with modern football that we always sort of point to is teams need philosophies, teams need identities. David Wagner put together a functional team and played to the strengths of the individuals within that squad at Norwich last season. That's a very good thing. And I think that's what Plymouth need. I don't think they need identity. I don't think they need philosophy. They need to stop conceding goals and play to the strengths of their quality players that they do have, like Sissoko, like Whittaker, like Mumba, like Hardy, etc. And I think David Wagner will come in and do that. It's just whether or not things are too far gone for Plymouth. So yeah, there's just a lot of question marks with both of them, but I'd expect them to be in this market, Plymouth, and the managers they're going after.
I mean, you say tighten up at the back. Norwich got into the top six last season and still conceded a fair few goals. So whether that's actually going to happen or not, I don't know. I mean, hey, Justin, we were just saying in the first half of the show, talk about, managers going back to their exes. Steven Schumacher, Nathan Jones. It's shown that it can be done. Exactly. In my experience, though, I think there's more cases of it not working than it does work. So yeah, I do agree with everything you said there, particularly about Schumacher. So if it does happen, it'll be interesting to see. I think it is also worth pointing out that, considering it's been 13 months now since Steven Schumacher left Plymouth to go to Stoke, not been a great career move for all involved, that has it? So
it's also another thing that needs to be pointed out is both their away records last season were pretty poor.
Exactly.
So that thing's not going to improve for Plymouth.
Yeah, the grass isn't always greener, is it? Anyway, let's move on to transfer news, and we'll begin with potentially the biggest transfer story of the January window in the Championship. Sunderland are reportedly in talks with Roma over a loan move for midfielder Enzo Le Fee. The 24-year-old only moved to Italy in the summer for £19 million from Rennes, but a lack of game time at Roma has meant he's seemingly available. So how's this all come about? Well, because he knows Sunderland manager Regis Lebris from his time at Lorient. There are other European clubs being linked with him, but reports seem to suggest that this is a possibility that he does go to Sunderland. Now, Justin, I'm not too familiar with him because I don't watch much football from Ligue 1. Do you?
Yeah, I do. I've got season tickets at Marseille, Reims and Troyes. Yeah. Okay,
surprising, but you know what? Fair enough. You proved us all wrong there. I'm glad you're happy with that. But I know someone who does. To give us the lowdown on Enzo Le Fee, we of course went to our resident European football expert, Andy Brassel, from our fellow Stack podcast on the continent.
Hello, fellas. Enzo Le Fee would be an amazing get for Sunderland, not least because they paid 25 million for him, Roma, 25 million euros at the start of the season. And he was one of the key signings brought in by Daniele De Rossi. Of course, they've gone through a few coaches since then, and Claudio Ranieri doesn't fancy him very much. So that's kind of why a loan makes sense, because Ranieri almost certainly won't be the coach next season. And Le Fee, who's very committed to making it happen in Roma, he moved across for the same money that he was already on at Rennes. He can maybe go back there and flourish under the next coach. Now, Lebris knows him very, very well from Lorient, of course. He started out as a sort of number 10, but now, as I guess is sort of the thing in European football, you have more of a sort of player who can dribble round players as a defensive midfielder. That's something that's happened with, say, Gravenberch at Liverpool, for example. So that's where he would fit in. And I guess if Roma wanted to retain the option to sell him on in the summer, getting him to flourish in an English market would help. So I guess that would make it worth Rome as well, helping out with the wages if he's not going to play for the rest of the season. But, he's a cut above. He should be playing for one of the better teams in Europe, and he certainly feels he's got the ability to do that. So, yeah, it would be an incredible get.
Thank you, Andy. And of course, On the Continent, the best podcast out there for European football. So make sure you check them out every Thursday and Friday. So we've heard about him, Justin. Some big praise there from Andy. And I've got to say, a midfield of Joe Bellingham and Enzo Le Fee. That would really show Sunderland mean business, wouldn't it?
Well, it would be a statement signing for starters. I mean, commanding a £20 million fee or whatever it was to Roma, I think goes to show what quality he has and what he possesses and what Roma rated him as. It's a big old fee. You can't see Championship clubs spending that, can you? So I think bringing him in again will show a statement of intent from Sunderland, and I think it will get we'll get more out of the likes of Dan Neil, because as I say, I think Le Fee can get on the ball in deeper areas. I don't think Sunderland have a player like him. He's a specialist. He would be a specialist at building play, getting on the ball. It's just whether or not he can adapt at this time of year. Halfway through the season, having played just 400 odd minutes so far this campaign, I think that's probably where you'd get a little bit nervous whether or not he can settle quickly and get used to the pace of the Championship.
Yeah, well, it's really fascinating. I mean, I won't profess to have watched much of Le Fee, but when I was doing my research for Regis Lebris, one of the big things that I kept coming across was the fact he did such a great job in his first season at Lorient and then such a poor job in his second season. The reason he did such a poor job in his second season was because they sold some of their most talented players, and Enzo Le Fee was seen as the most talented player that he was working with there. So it's going to be fascinating to see if it were to happen, how he would get on back under his old manager, who got the best out of him when he was developing over in France. I think that would be interesting, even if for people in France, just to see how he would get on there. But from a Championship perspective, I mean, that would be a serious move, wouldn't it? I'm rather unsure as to where he would fit in. I mean, if he's as good a player as he is, he would have to fit in somewhere. I don't know where that would be when you've got the holy trifecta of Joe Bellingham, Chris Rigg and Dan Neil, because all three of them have been absolutely superb this season. But one of them will have to make way for this if it were to happen. So fingers crossed it does happen, because it will certainly make it a very, very tasty final few months of the Championship season from a neutral perspective, and really hopefully give Sunderland that extra boost that they have perhaps, because they've faded somewhat in the past couple of months, haven't they? This would give them an extra boost to really get them going again, hopefully. So if this is the sign of the ambition Sunderland are showing in this window, wow, Justin, that's exciting.
Oh yeah, it definitely is exciting. And again, it gives them a different dimension to their game. They can maybe try and control and dictate games with a little bit more ease, because they do have a player that is so tidy, or can be so tidy in possession. So it just opens up more avenues for them. And again, if you've got someone with the creative and technical background that Le Fee has, again, it can get more out of the likes of Joe Bellingham, Patrick Roberts, because you've got a player there who's going to find them. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, there's a player there who's got the vision, got the quality to get the pass to them in dangerous areas. And it gives Lebris, although, as you say, there's a potential selection headache there. What a nice headache to have. Headaches are horrible. They're uncomfortable, but this is a good one.
I mean, that's a bloody good headache to have, isn't it? Trying to figure out how you're going to fit these four ridiculously talented players into one team. One will obviously probably have to miss out, but I digress. It's a very exciting, it's a very exciting link for Sunderland. So hopefully it comes off. Let's go from the spectacular to the downright glum. The Daily Mail is reporting Leeds United would now be open to selling Illan Meslier following his recent form for the club. I mean, all we said on Sunday, Justin, was Leeds should drop him, not kick him out of the club.
Yeah, it's a bit of a tough break for Meslier, but I mean, I've seen a lot of fans, Leeds fans that is, talking about Sam Allardyce, for example, coming in when they were relegated, and the first thing he did was drop Meslier. I mean, it's not exactly, Sam Allardyce isn't exactly this football foresight or anything. He did get them relegated as well, although damage was done before that. But you've got a manager there who's identified that Meslier could be a weakness. Unfortunately, as I said, Leeds do not concede a lot of shots. They're very good at keeping opposition out, but Meslier concedes from the shots they do take. Now, if you just had a goalkeeper who was fairly competent this season, as I said, I think I made the joke about me going in goal and then being fairly confident I could keep one or two out, especially at my near post. Meslier has been beaten at his near post quite a lot. I'd definitely try and do a better job at keeping those out. If you just have someone with a little bit of competence, then maybe, just maybe, Leeds will fare a lot better, keep a lot more clean sheets, and give them a lot more focus going forwards, because that's been the key thing. I think Meslier's become a distraction now, and when things become a distraction when you're chasing for promotion, it's not good for anyone. So yeah, open selling him, I think, is probably the right time that they all part ways.
Just make a note of that. So Justin Peach thinks he could score Josh Windas's goal, and he thinks he could do a better job in goal than Illan Meslier. He really 100%. Thinks he is Roy of the Rovers, doesn't he? Yeah. I mean, it's funny with Meslier because I think it's completely undeniable that he's had a shocking season. I don't think there's any defence really of him. And if Leeds did have a better goalkeeper, they would definitely be miles clear at the top of the Championship right now. But the funny thing is that he seems to get linked with a move away quite a lot from Leeds. I think I've seen several clubs in France be linked with him. In the summer, I think I did. And then I think I've even seen links to some of the biggest clubs in Europe at certain points. So how true those links are. He's clearly rated somewhat elsewhere outside of Ellen Road, but when you've actually put him in between the sticks, it just doesn't work. And the fact that Daniel Farke has stuck with him shows that he still rates him, even though he has had plenty of ricks this season. So it's a funny one. He is still young. We have got to remember this. Even though he has been Leeds' number one now for 5 years, he is still pretty young in goalkeeper terms. So what happens next is just going to be fascinating. First of all, does Daniel Farke stick with him? Do Leeds sell him this window? I honestly don't know. So that's why the Illan Meslier saga is just such a strange one. And as time goes on, will he end up being a good goalkeeper? I honestly don't know, Justin. As we say, still quite young, so there's plenty of time for him to turn things around. But based off how he's done so far this season, you've got to say it's going to be quite a way back, I would say. One player who could be coming in at Leeds is Andrew Omobamidele. The Nottingham Forest defender is reportedly available because of a lack of game time. Now, Pascal Struijk missed Leeds' game against Hull at the weekend with an ankle injury, but he has also been linked with a move away, and Daniel Farke knows Omobamidele well, having worked with him at Norwich, so be interesting if that one comes off, Justin.
Yeah, no, obviously a bit of depth is always going to be useful at centre half, especially considering Leeds. Ethan Ampadu had to drop in at centre back last season when Struijk got injured, and you felt that a little bit from a Leeds perspective, because you're missing Ampadu in midfield, and you're missing the calm, cool head that Struijk is at centre back as well. So at least bringing in a little bit of depth ensures that Ampadu can continue and do his job in midfield, and obviously have a good quality defender at centre back. And with it being a low move, it seems low risk as well. Obviously, if there's a view to a permanent, is another story. But yeah, depth makes sense at this time of year.
Now, an interesting announcement in the past 48 hours from the EFL. They've revealed ITV will broadcast 2 championship games in the next month. It includes Leeds v Sheffield Wednesday on Sunday the 19th, as well as Middlesbrough v Sunderland on Monday the 3rd of February. The EFL says it's part of an agreement to give UK-based football fans the chance to watch free-to-air coverage. So this means absolutely nothing to anyone outside of the UK, but just to give them a picture, the only way you can watch the EFL in this country is by Sky Sports. Every other broadcaster is just not being able to get their hands on the EFL. So the fact that we've got free to watch telly getting, admittedly, only 2 games, I quite like it, Justin.
I do like it. I really, really like it, actually. I'm surprised that Sky don't offer this opportunity out a little bit more often throughout the season, because from my I did a business degree. From my business savvy brain, I'm thinking this is a here's what you can have sort of thing. It's a good advertisement for Sky because Championship is the product that they're trying to sell to people. Premier League's the premier product, obviously, we all know that. But if you put free-to-air games on TV and they're bloody good games, it gives people a sense of what they're missing out. It should be a no-brainer anyway. We all love the Championship. We all know the Championship is a monumental football league.
Preaching to the choir a bit here, aren't we?
Yeah. But I think from a Sky perspective, if they're allowing people to watch it for free every now and then it's gonna help them make the decision to go out and pay for Sky. And I think it can only be a good thing. I think the only good things can come from this.
Yeah, well, they picked two bloody good games. We could say that much for sure. So, yeah, I think it's an interesting one. And if this is something that's going to happen more over the next few seasons, even if it is only 2 games, I think that's only a good thing. As we say, any publicity that the EFL gets, I think is only a good thing for the EFL as a whole. So hopefully this is a sign of more things like this to come. And finally, Justin, it's the moment that everyone has been waiting for. Forget all the news that we've been talking about for the past 30, 40 minutes or so. This is what people tuned into this podcast for today. It's the players you forgot existed 11. Now, this comes after we were talking on Sunday, following Rob Holding potentially joining commentary. That was the news we were discussing, and I remarked that I just completely forgot about him. So I promised that I was going to assemble a whole 11 of players I had forgotten were still playing. I didn't want to get too obscure of this, so I've kept it to players still playing at a decent level. And we've also had a few suggestions from listeners as well, Justin. So thank you to all those getting in touch. But I think it's also a bit of a game for you because I'm going to test some of these to see where you think some of these players actually are. Because there's some obscure ones in there. So the first player is obviously the goalkeeper. The goalkeeper, I've gone with John Ruddy, Justin. Was surprised to see he was still playing, even though he was in the Championship last season, which also something I forget. Do you know where John Ruddy is nowadays?
Has he gone to Australia? Is he at Sydney?
You may be surprised to know he's at Newcastle United.
Oh my God.
Yeah, if he's I assume he's doing the old Scott Carson role up in the northeast.
Yeah,
but that certainly caught me off guard when I found that one out. Onto the defence now at right back. I've gone for 3 centre halves in this 4-man defence. Jamal Lascelles. It's just someone forgotten about. He's still at Newcastle. I won't test you on that one because that was pretty obvious. But yeah, it's just someone who I hadn't thought about in a long time. Okay. Even though he was quite good not too long ago, wasn't he? And I played football against him infamously, which I have mentioned on this podcast before. Did you play against him as well?
I don't think I did. I played against Will Hughes, but not Jamal Lascelles. I'd have probably been better than him anyway. If I can pull off Windass and be a better keeper than Meslier, it's a no-brainer.
Right, we'll add that to the list. Justin is better than Jamal Lascelles. Your ego is getting out of control.
It's too big.
We need to put it down a bit, don't we? On to our first centre-back. Well, second centre-back, technically. This was from Dan Brown on our Patreon. He suggested Angelo Agbona, who, of course, joined Watford in the summer, which is one of those moves I also forgot about.
He's not played, has he?
He played 5 games, I think. He actually came on the other day against Sheffield United, but that was his first appearance in 3 months or something like that.
Good.
So, yeah, Angelo Ogbonna, one of those moves which raised an eyebrow for me in the summer and I hadn't thought about since. On to the next centre-back, Justin. Chris Smalling. Where do you think Chris Smalling is nowadays?
He was at Roma, but if I remember, he went to the Middle East.
You'd be correct. Yeah. If you're going to be more specific, you would have said Saudi Arabia at Al Fayha. Another move which has completely passed me by. But yeah, good to see Chris Smalling still going strong, I guess. Onto the left back, you must know this one, Justin. Jamal Lewis.
Oh, we spoke about him. He's at Santos.
No, Sao Paulo.
Sao Paulo. Yeah.
Yeah. He's playing in Brazil, which is one of the most random transfers ever. Former Norwich City left back Jamal Lewis. Watford as well. Didn't he play for Watford?
He was on loan spell at Watford.
I'm not sure he did play for
Newcastle.
Newcastle, yeah, he moved to Newcastle permanently. Then he was on loan at Watford last season. But yeah, Connor emailed him with that suggestion. I think we had a couple of people on Twitter suggest him as well. He was a pretty go-to one, really, wasn't he? Right wing, Justin, this one I'm really interested to see who you say for this. Nathan Redmond is my choose for right wing. He's still going. Do you know where Nathan Redmond is playing nowadays?
Did he go to Turkey? I'll say Trabzonspor.
He's at Burnley.
Oh.
Completely blew my mind that Nathan Redmond is still in the Championship as we sit here right now. Yeah, that's the face I was pulling as well, Justin. Very, very confused when I saw that. Centre mid, this is a heartbreaking one, Justin. Josh Da Silva of Brentford. Someone I've not thought about in a long time, but he is in the infamous category of players I predicted to play for England, who were once in the Championship. Josh Da Silva was bloody good several years ago, and a lot of people probably can't even remember him, but he was class for Brentford in the Championship.
Technically beautiful player, really is. And again, I hate the saying, I hate the cliche, good feet for a big man, because he's a tall lad, and he's, as I say, technical quality is brilliant, just hampered by injuries. Yeah, really sad, really sad that he's not been able to really kick on. Maybe it's that curse you put upon him when you predicted he'd play for England. That is a theme right now. Ryan Giles, Leif Davis, couple of there.
No, that's not a curse at all, because the vast majority of players I've predicted to play for England have played for England.
Oh, yeah, Ryan Giles is in that squad, is he?
What about Taylor Harwood-Bellis? What about Morgan Gibbs-White? What about Eberechi Eze? Do you want me to carry on? Ivan Toney?
Come on,
Calvin Phillips?
Back to the task.
Okay, fine. Yeah, silent now, aren't you? Centre mid, this was suggested by Tom on Twitter. Aaron Ramsey of Cardiff. Yeah, another one who you just forget about.
I'm sorry, Cardiff fans. I know you lapped it up and he had a couple of good games, but we called it out last summer. It was a pointless signing. The man's hampered by injuries. He's probably on a decent wage that could go to at least 2 players in that squad. Ooh, it grates me.
Yeah, I forget he's still at Cardiff. It's really astonishing, because there was so much fanfare when that move happened, and it's not worked out at all, has it? Because the old injury problems, which have dogged him for most of his career, have really come back with a vengeance since he's gone back to his boyhood side. So that's really sad. Just mentioned Aaron Ramsey at centre mid. Justin, for left wing, I've gone the other Aaron Ramsey, the one who was at Middlesbrough a couple of seasons ago. Where's he at now?
He's at Burnley.
He is at Burnley. He's still at Burnley, yeah. Which
what Burnley doing?
It blew my mind a bit. I think he's injured. I think he's been injured all season. But yeah, Aaron Ramsey is still on the books in the Championship, which, again, wow.
Yeah, I mean, a quality player. And again, if he's hampered by injuries, then that's that. I mean, people go, well, you're championship experts. Why didn't you know players that are in Burnley's squad? Genuinely, like, Burnley's squad is that big. I don't think Scott Parker knows who some of these players are.
He's probably right.
Madness.
He's probably right. On to the strikers now. The front two. Phil suggested him on Twitter, saying, I thought he retired several years ago. It's Ched Evans at Preston.
Yeah, I've got one actually. But Ched Evans, again, I thought he got made like interim head caretaker manager in this.
So he's a player coach this season, and he's been focusing on that from the sounds of it, as well as picking up an injury. So Ched Evans, who was the one you were going to say, Justin?
Adam Lafondra is still playing.
Yeah, but I said decent level, Justin. Otherwise, we could be here all day talking about.
Hang on a second. What level is he playing at?
I mean, he was in Australia a few years ago, wasn't he?
That's a decent level. Oh, no, he's in the Northern Premier League. Carry on.
Well, there you go. I mean, if you wanted to, you could really make a really obscure of players who are still playing, but I wanted to go like Championship bare minimum. And the final player in this 11, Justin, it's another sad one. Ross Stewart. Just what a sad story that is. But I also forget about him, which is astonishing because he was so good for Sunderland a couple of seasons ago.
Yeah, weirdly, I had a conversation with him, about him in the pub last night, over a beer, and I was like, oh, what's he doing? I mean, Southampton are desperate. I obviously don't follow Premier League as closely now, well, Southampton closely now, but yeah, a player who's got wonderful finishing ability, but just again hampered by injuries. It is sad. It is sad. The man I predicted to win the Golden Boot never came.
No, never came, which is really, really sad. Played just 4 league games this season. I think he's injured again, which just shows that injuries have really destroyed his career. So, yeah, a bit of a sour note to end this. Players you forgot exist in 11.
Yeah, no, I feel sad.
But this will cheer you up, Justin. On Sunday, it's our halfway team of the season, where we will be picking the best of the best from the Championship so far this season. Me and Justin have had a bit of a chit-chat about this. I think it's going to be, I don't want to say controversial, I think it's going to be interesting, to say the very least, because there's quite a few players in certain areas, other areas quite more difficult. Anyway, we'll leave that there and we'll reveal all on Sunday. So we look forward to seeing you then for that. But this has been the Second Tier Podcast. I've been Ryan Dilks.
I've been Justin Peach.
And a big thank you for listening.